when the arsonist complains about the fire. How years of mismanagement magically became someone else's fault, by Chris Chan. My dear fellow neighbors and ratepayers, a timeless proverb says, "A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruin." In short, there are some who deceive the public while pretending to care for them. There are some men who, when confronted with an uncomfortable truth, would sooner deny the existence of the sun than admit they had spent the morning insisting it would never rise. Such a man, it appears, is our friend Rocky. For years, this council has been a monument to inefficiency and unresponsiveness. See the council's community survey. A shining example of what happens when bureaucracy ceases to serve and begins instead to rule. And yet, only now does Rocky lift his voice. Not to cry for reform, not to acknowledge past failures, but to carefully construct an alternative reality in which he and his allies are innocent spectators to a disaster they helped to create. One might say that this is a rather spectacular feat of self-deception, though I would argue it is nothing so sophisticated. It is not that Rocky is blind. It is that he chooses to look in the wrong direction. On the sudden alarm over a lawn-burning fire, Rocky, with the confidence of a man who has just discovered water and wishes to announce it to the world, proclaims that events over the last few weeks have made ministerial intervention inevitable. In fact, he seems to have inside knowledge. This is a bit like a man who, having spent years pouring fuel upon the ground, now complains that someone has struck a match. For let us consider. Was it last week that the Kuma water tank failed, drowning homes and livelihoods, only for the council to smother the truth rather than take responsibility? Was it yesterday that the people of this region were burdened with exorbitant rate increases, while their money vanished into the black hole of half-finished projects and ill-conceived financial ventures? Was it just this morning that council mismanaged Polo Flat Road, that they dismantled the mobile library while expanding the Kuma library's hours, that they silenced the very people they are meant to serve? No, these things were not sudden calamities but long-standing sins. They are not new problems but old ones, ignored until they became impossible to conceal. And so I ask, has Rocky only now awoken to the disaster that has been unfolding before his eyes all along? Or does he simply find it convenient to notice it now? On the true cause of ministerial intervention, Rocky, curiously, does not ask, why is the minister intervening? He skips straight to asking, what kind of intervention will occur? This is like asking whether one will be hanged or imprisoned without pausing to wonder what crime has brought the noose or the chains. For years, the Gang of Six have governed without scrutiny, aided by those who value secrecy over service. They have ignored lawful requests, hidden financial details, and treated their positions not as responsibilities, but as entitlements. And yet, when the minister finally takes notice, Rocky does not look to the failures of those who have actually governed. No, he looks instead at one counselor, one of the very few who has stood up and demanded accountability, and declares that he is the problem. It is a strange and curious thing to watch a man cry out for help, only to curse the doctor when he arrives. On the question of public anger, there is, for once, a sentence from Rocky's mouth that I can agree with. The community should be rightly pissed off at who let this occur. Yes, they should be angry that their roads are crumbling. They should be angry that their money has been squandered. They should be angry that their questions have been met with silence, their complaints with scorn, and their trust with betrayal. But Rocky would have you believe that the villains in this story are not the ones who governed us into financial disaster, not the ones who buried the truth, not the ones who laughed in the face of transparency and accountability. No, the villain, according to Rocky, is a man who tried to expose it, and the independent counselors who push for transparency and accountability. That, dear reader, is an argument that would not survive even the most basic scrutiny. If a man sees smoke pouring from his neighbor's house and shouts, "Fire!" the appropriate response is to grab a bucket, not to demand his removal from the neighborhood. But that is precisely what Rocky has done. On Rocky's peculiar love of demerger and his aversion to democracy. At last, we come to Rocky's final and most spectacular contradiction. He declares that he supports demerger because he believes in community ownership, in local representation, in giving the people a say in their governance. And yet, in his actions, he petitioned the minister to remove a democratically elected councillor before that councillor had even taken his seat, aligned himself with those who have made transparency their enemy, supports the very gang of councillors who have actively fought against public scrutiny. What exactly does Rocky mean by community input? Does he mean the voices of ordinary citizens, or only the voices of those who already hold power? Rocky tells us he wants the people to have a greater say in their government, yet he has spent his time trying to silence the very councillors who have fought for just that. It is a peculiar kind of democracy that allows people to vote only when they vote for the right people. In conclusion, I would like to assume that Rocky is simply mistaken, that he has, like so many, been swept up in a false narrative rather than deliberately constructing one. He may also has been given false information by various people on the inside. Rocky may simply have been duped, but I suspect that is not the case. No man accidentally spends his time attempting to remove an elected representative, only to turn around and lament a lack of community input. No man accidentally ignores years of mismanagement, only to cry foul when the consequences finally arrive. What we have here is not an argument, it is a performance. Rocky is not trying to persuade you with facts. He is trying to distract you from them. Do not be distracted. Do not let them tell you that those who expose the fire are the ones who set it. Do not let them tell you that accountability is dangerous while corruption is safe. Do not let them tell you that their voices matter while yours does not. For too long, deception has been used as a tool to obscure failures, shift blame, and silence those who dare to question authority. But truth is not a fleeting whisper. It is a foundation, unshaken by the winds of political maneuvering. Lies may buy time, deceive the unaware, and serve the ambitions of the unscrupulous, but they are always doomed to collapse under the weight of reality. Every concealed fact, every misrepresented event, and every distortion of history will eventually be laid bare for all to see. The people may be misled for a season, but they are not fooled forever. In the end, it is not the loudest voice nor the most cunning deceit that will prevail, but the unyielding certainty of truth. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment. The people of this region have been lied to for too long. The truth is before them. Let them decide for themselves.